Jagannath Swami ki jai. So we're going to chant the mantras. Mantra. Okay, get your book out. Om Purnam Adaha Purnam Nidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate Isavashyam Hidam Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Taktena Punjitaha Magridaha Kashishdhanam Kurvane Vaha Karmani Jijivishakshatam Samaha Evam Tvainam Yate Tosti Nakarma Lipyate Nare Surya Namate Loka Adhena Tamasa Vritaha Tastab Jagdigacha Tamste Prasya Vigaschanti Yeke Chatvahano Janaha Anejare Kamanasajaviyo Nainam Devapnubam Purvamoshat Tadhavatonyan Vatitishtat Tasminapo Matarishvadadhati Tadejati Tanajati Tadure Tadvantike Tarantarasya Sarvasya Tarusarasya Sabayataha Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmaimaneva Nupasyati Sarva Bhuteshu Chatmanam Tatona Vijagupsate Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atmaiva Bhudvijanataha Tatraka Mahakasoka Ekatvamanupashyataha Sapaya Chakshukramakayam Avanam Vishnaviram Shudam Apapa Vidham Kabir Manisi Paribu Swayambur Yatharyatoritam Yadaschaspativya Samabhyaha. You know I have a recording of all these verses. Did you know that? Maybe we should just play the recording. Antam tamaha pravishanti ye vidyam upasvate tato bhuya ivate tamo ya usabhidyayam rataha anyare bahur vidyaya anyarahur vidyaya iti shushu madiranam yenastad vijachakshare. Text 11, mantra 11. Vidyam cha yas tadvedo vayam saha avidyamritam tirtva vidyayamritam ashnute. Antam tamaham pravishanti ye sambhutim upassate Tatabuya ivate tamo ya usambhutyam rattaha. Anyare bahur sambhavat anyarahur sambhavat iti shushu madiranam yenastadvijachakshare. Sambhutim cha vinasam cha yastad vedo vayam saha vinasena mritam tirtva sambhutyam mritam ashnute. Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukam tattvam puncham apavranu satyadharmaya drishtaye Purushane karshi yamasuya prajapatya viyuharasmin samuha tejaha yate rupam kalyanantamam tate pasyami yasavaso purushasoham ashmi Mayuranilamam ritam atedam vashmantam shariram Om Kritosmara Kritam Smara Kritosmara Kritam Smara. And last verse. Agnenaya Supataraya Asman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidvan Yadyorashmat Judahana Meno Uyishtam Tenama Uktim Vidhema. So today we're going to discuss verses 4 through 8. And these verses are very similar. So what I want to do first is read the first 4 verses without the purports. So, and the first thing we'll do is read, and then we'll discuss the similarities, and we'll go into more detail. Text number 4. The personality of Godhead, although fixed in his abode, is more swift than the mind, and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Although in one place he has control over those who supply the air and rain. He surpasses all in excellence. So what these verses are doing now is describing the transcendental nature of the Supreme and describing what seems to be material contradictions and then resolving these contradictions. Presenting the contradiction, because the nature of transcendence is it is in many ways contradictory, because it doesn't have material limitations. So you'll see, he's in one place and he's running everywhere. How can you be in one place and at the same time be moving everywhere? It's a contradiction. So more contradictions will come up. Text 5 has more contradictions. The Supreme Lord walks, and he does not walk. He is far away, but he's very near as well. He is within everything, and again, he is outside of everything. So we have 3 contradictions here. And as Prabhupada says, all contradictions are resolved in the Supreme Lord. Mantra 6. A person who sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything nor any being. This is interesting. You'll respect everyone if you see Krishna in everyone's heart, naturally. Mantra 7. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks in quality one with the Lord becomes a true knower of things. What is there as illusion or anxiety for him? And the last text, number 8, in this series that we'll discuss today. Such a person must know, in fact, the greatest of all, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who is awarding everyone's desire since time immemorial. So we don't have time to read all the purports. In a perfect world, you would have read all the purports already. So I don't know if your world is perfect or not, but you should have read them. Yesterday we read, but we only covered 3 verses and the purports were shorter. I don't think we have time. So we need to highlight some points. I have some commentaries by the Acharyas, and they highlight some points, so I wanted to start with a few points because it forms a foundation for the discussion. And it's quite succinct, the points they make. So, here. So, mantra 4. Let's read the translation. And we'll begin with discussing mantra 4. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, although fixed in his abode, is more swift than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him, although in one place he has control over those who supply the air and rain. He surpasses all in excellence. Now it's interesting to read other translations. The Lord is without fear. So the first thing that's said here is, fixed in his abode, he's more swift than the mind. And here it describes he's without fear, he's supreme, and he's faster than the mind. The Devatas cannot understand him completely, but he has understood everything since eternity. Standing in one place, he surpasses all others who move quickly. Under him, Vayu supports the movement of all living beings. I'll read another translation. This is describing the nature. Like if someone asks you the question, well, who's God, or what's God's nature? These verses are perfect descriptions of the transcendental nature. Like we were discussing the other day. When you have material conception of God, then you put limitations on him, and then you believe that he is similar to us, being controlled by nature, the way we're controlled. And these verses show he's completely different from us in every way. So this translation, the Lord is the independent person who does not move, but he moves faster than the mind. The Devatas cannot understand and perceive this Lord, though he is present before them. Though remaining in one place, he overtakes all those who run. By his power, the air carries the water and the clouds. So, again, as we said before, the super soul is actually being described because it said, what is it said? In the next verse, he's within everything and outside of everything. That's a description of the super soul. But when it says he's fixed in one place, but he's more swift than the mind, that's also a description of the super soul, because super soul is everywhere. He's in every atom, so he's everywhere. And our minds can only conceive of something material, and Krishna is beyond, both within the material and spiritual. Srila Prabhupada would say. So Krishna exists beyond where even our mind can travel to. So he's beyond the mind. So he's more swift than the mind. And he exists within everything. Everything that the mind can't conceive, he's also there. So he's swifter than the mind, being all-pervading. But as a person, as we know, he's in one place. So it solves that contradiction. Now, let me just read this little commentary. It's interesting because the commentators are going into the Sanskrit and dissecting it from Sanskrit. And then we'll read Prabhupada's commentary, which is very expansive. Prabhupada's commentaries are very expansive. And as we said before, much of what Prabhupada says is directed towards the general public who knows nothing. So here, some analysis for those of you who like to analyze Sanskrit, because this is what the Acharyas do when they comment, they analyze Sanskrit. Supreme Lord is without motion, anijad, and is the principal person, ekam, or the independent person with no equal. He is swifter than the quickest mind, manaso javiyo. Someone may object, it's impossible that he does not move and yet is still faster than the wind. But it's not impossible. It's easy for the Lord to do this. It's figuratively said he does not move because he's eternally pervading everything. And he has no need, because he's pervading everything, he has no need to move. Because he's already everywhere. So where's he going to go? That's interesting, right? So here it said figuratively. Of course, we know Krishna moves, but in this sense, no need to move if you're already everywhere. And he is swifter than the functioning of the mind, since he exceeds the limits of where the mind can go at all times. The other statements should be understood in the same manner. The Devatas have not until this time attained this person, Krishna. Although he's everywhere, they haven't attained him. Then he remains everywhere, Tishtan. He remains in the earth. And Ya Atmani Tishtan, he remains in the soul. Thus, remaining motionless everywhere, he overtakes all others. So he's in one place, but that one place is everywhere. Even if one travels at the speed of the mind, flying for 1,000,000 years, one cannot find the end of the Lord. So that's another reason he's swifter than the mind. It is astonishing because all others who remain motionless cannot overtake a running person. This verse speaks of another astonishing feature. Situated in him, the air, though without firmness or substance to prevent objects from falling, carries water. This means that being supported by the Lord, who is the controller of everything and the container of everything, air, by the Lord's power, carries the sun, the clouds, constellations, the planets, and the stars. So that is in reference to the last line of this verse. He has control over those who supply the air and rain. Of course, we know without him nothing could happen. So I want to read some things from Prabhupada's purports, and then we can discuss, because I think there's too much. As I said, we don't have time to read everything. So the fourth mantra of Sri Isopanisad very clearly suggests that the absolute truth is ultimately the absolute person. Otherwise, there would have been no need to mention so many details in support of his personal features. In other words, as we all know, that people who read the Vedas often have heard the Vedas from an impersonal commentary or impersonal guru. And so herein it's being described something very interesting, which is that personal features of the Lord are being described. And whenever personal features are described, then how could we attribute impersonality to someone with personal features? So Prabhupada's saying so many personal features are being described, like we say he has intelligence, or he can walk, he can run, he can do this, he can do that. So that's the idea here. And as we know, one of the missions of Srila Prabhupada is to expose the misunderstanding of the personal conception, or to relativize it, that it's one aspect of Krishna, but it's not everything. And so this is one very powerful argument to substantiate the personality of Godhead, in that the scripture is attributing personal qualities to him. So how can someone with personal qualities not be a person? Why would scripture ascribe personal qualities if he's impersonal? In the Vishnu Purana, his potencies are compared to the heat and light that emanate from a fire. Although situated in one place, a fire can distribute its light and heat for some distance. Similarly, the absolute personality of Godhead, although fixed in his transcendental abode, can diffuse his different energies everywhere. And so, this problem of understanding God from our perspective is very pervasive, because people say, if God is the greatest, how could he be a person? Because people have limitations. And it's true, people have limitations. But if you look at the sun's everywhere by its energy. I mean, it's in the sky, but by its energy it's everywhere. So therefore, materially, logically, if God is everywhere, he can't be a person, because people are not everywhere. You are here, you're not at home. Right? So then, when we try to understand God, then we try to understand him like ourselves. So that's where the misconception starts. So if God's a person, that means he would be a person somewhat like us, because that's how we look at it. And if he's somewhat like us, he couldn't be a person and be God, because that wouldn't make sense. He has to be impersonal energy that pervades everything. So, and of course, we know the analogy. The sun is in one place, but it's everywhere. And we also, reading here from the Vishnu Purana, this verse, you may have heard this verse before, just as heat and light spreads, fire spreads heat and light. Fire's in one place, heat and light's going out. Krishna's like the fire, spreading heat and light. Simple analogy. And isn't it interesting that the scripture gives so many of these analogies, and still you have so many people who have an impersonal concept of God? That means they can't understand transcendence properly, because they're still materially conditioned. Or it also means they're attached to the impersonal conception, because the impersonal conception is easier to deal with, because there's no person demanding that you do anything for them, especially surrender. Asking surrender comes from a person, not from an energy. Jagannath Swami ki jai, Radha Krishna Chandra ki jai, Shri Gauri Nitai ki jai, Lakshmi Nrsimha ki jai. I want to show our guests on Facebook the deities, but all I see is a big light. Maybe the camera will adjust. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Now we have more light, and then in the darkness. We have to get a balance there. You'd probably rather see Jagannath than me, so we'll make me dark and then lighter. Okay. Hare Krishna. Everything's backwards in this camera. So Jagannath's on the opposite side. Anyway, and the Pujari is doing artik with his left hand on the camera. Let's read some more what Prabhupada said. Although the Lord and his energies are non-different, one should not mistake these energies for the Supreme Truth. Nor should one wrongly consider that the Supreme Lord is distributed everywhere impersonally, or that he loses his personal existence. These are all material conceptions. Well, if he's everywhere, it can't be a person. And the other point, he and his energies are non-different, so therefore he is his energy. Like we pick up a rock and say, oh, this is Krishna, because Krishna is in the rock as Paramatma. So sometimes we say, this is Brahman, this is spiritual. But we don't say the rock is Krishna. That's the mistake. Right? Simple philosophy. Sri Isopanisad warns us to be very careful to play the part designated for us by the Lord. This does not mean that the individual soul has no initiative of his own, because he is part and parcel of the Lord. He must partake of the initiative of the Lord as well. When a person properly utilizes his initiative or active nature, and Prabhupada says initiative, he means action. Basically, Prabhupada is saying, we're active, Krishna's active. It doesn't mean when you become Krishna conscious, you're not active. When a person properly utilizes his initiative or active nature with intelligence, understanding that everything is the Lord's potency, he can revive his original consciousness, which was lost due to association with Maya, the external energy. All power is obtained from the Lord, therefore each particular power must be utilized to execute the will of the Lord and not otherwise. The Lord can be known by one who has adopted such a submissive attitude. I just want to briefly look through the purport and see if there's anything else we should discuss that may be pertinent or of interest. Yes. Here's something else. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that no one, not even the great rishis and suras, can know him. So what is there to say of the asuras who are not even qualified to understand the ways of the Lord? All these words mentioned in Mantra 4 suggest very clearly the absolute truth is ultimately the absolute person. Otherwise, there would have been no necessity for mentioning so many varied things in support of his personal features. Okay, it's time for text 5. Unless you have some comment or question. Text 5. The Supreme Lord walks and he does not walk. He is far away, but he's very near as well. He is within everything, and again he is outside of everything. Let's read a few other translations. This is interesting. Mantra 5. It doesn't begin that he walks and does not walk. It begins, out of fear of the Lord. Others fear the Lord, but the Lord fears no one. He is far away, but close. He is inside everything and outside of everything. And then another translation. Isn't it interesting? It's translated, Ijati is translated as, oh, this doesn't have the word meanings. That's unfortunate. This is translated as walking and not walking, and here it's translated as fear. Tad ijati means others are afraid of him. Tad naijati means he is not afraid of anyone. That's interesting, right? Here's another translation. That entity, which is Krishna, that entity moves but does not move. It is very far away but also close. It is within everything and also outside of everything. So here it's obvious, the contradictions. Let me read one commentary. This is by Baladev Vidyabhushan. Because of the difficulty in understanding the teachings of the previous verse, the Supreme Lord under discussion is described again in this verse. So, what Baladev Vidyabhushan is saying is, the word mantra 4 is introducing this idea of contradictions from the material perspective. And it may be difficult in the beginning for people to understand how Krishna embodies contradictions, how he can be everywhere in one place and so forth. So this verse is continuing to explain the contradictions, because it maybe in verse 4 people didn't get it. So verse 5 is elaborating on it. The Paramatma moves and does not move. The fool may think that he moves, but he does not actually move. Or does not move can mean he does not stray from Dharma. He always protects his devotees. So he does not move means he's steady. That could mean he's steady. It could mean he's everywhere, or it could mean he doesn't stray from Dharma and he always protects his devotees and like that. He is always situated far away. The ignorant cannot approach him for millions of years unless he seems far away. So that's the meaning of far away. He's far away. Who's he far away for? The devotee? No, he's very close to the devotee, but he's very far away. When we say he's very far away but very near as well, he's far away for the non-devotees, and he's very close for the devotees. That's the meaning. Right? God is very far away. Yes, for you, he's far away. There is no God. Yes, for you, there is no God. God is dead. Yes, for you, God is dead. So that's the idea. God is far away. Yes, for you, he's far away. There is no God. For you, there is no God. Speak for yourself. The ignorant cannot approach him for millions of years unless he seems far away. But he is also very close. Ankike, because he is in the heart of the knower of Brahman. For one who pervades all, where is the question of far or near? Not only is he near and far, but he is within all manifested objects endowed with name, form, and action. So, Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena, how far is Krishna when you see him everywhere? So, Bhakti Siddhanta said something beautiful. He said, for the non-devotee, for the atheist, he can see God nowhere. And for the devotee, he can see God everywhere. Isn't that interesting? For the devotee sees God everywhere, the atheist sees God nowhere. The devotee sees God in everything, the atheist sees no God in anything. So that's the close and the far. Interesting, huh? Funny as well. And so perfectly put. So the atheist says, how can you believe in God? The theist says, how could you not believe in God? The atheist says, how could you see God? The theist says, how could you not see God? So that's the difference. Okay. So we'll read some things Prabhupada said from Mantra 5 and discuss. The contradictions given here prove the inconceivable potencies of the Lord. He walks and he does not walk. Ordinarily, if someone can walk, it is illogical to say he cannot walk. But in reference to God, such a contradiction simply serves to indicate his inconceivable power. Like we were discussing the other day, you might say, well, how can Krishna do two contradictory things? Well, that's because he's God, so he can do whatever he wants. So if he wants to do two contradictory things, what's going to stop him from doing that? Are you going to stop him? Is material nature going to stop him? Is there any force in the universe that's going to stop him from doing what he wants? So if he wants to embody a contradiction, then he does. So he can walk and not walk, meaning he can be everywhere and nowhere and in one place if he chooses. And he did choose to do that. That's how he maintains the world. You know, if Krishna wasn't everywhere, the world couldn't be maintained. If he wasn't in everything as Paramatma, the world couldn't be maintained. So he has to be everywhere. But at the same time, he has relationships and loving affairs. So if he's everywhere as Paramatma, how's he going to have loving relationships? So he has to be Paramatma for maintenance purposes. And he's Krishna for enjoying purposes. So he can do that. And as we said the other day, he can expand any way he wants, into any form he wants, to perform any function he wants. And at the same time, no matter how much he expands, he can remain aloof. And there's Om Purnamadaha, and he's still the same. So it's just the idea is that he is achintya, inconceivable to our minds. And as long as we're materially conditioned, he'll always be inconceivable. And that's a fact we have to accept. So when we hear contradictory things, we understand that's his inconceivable nature. And the fact, if someone says, well, that's inconceivable, we say, yeah, exactly. You've understood God. When they say, it doesn't make sense, yes, exactly, you've understood God. It doesn't make sense. It won't make sense because he's not a conditioned soul. So if someone says it's inconceivable or it doesn't make sense, we'd say, yeah, you've understood. You've understood God. He won't make sense to you in that way because he's not a being of this world that fits within the laws of nature. He created those laws. So he's not subjected to them. So, you're trying to understand God being subjected to his own laws. It doesn't work that way unless he wants to be subjected. But he's got his own laws. And so if you come to this point where you say, I can't understand God, in a sense, that's kind of an admission that you're starting to understand God. Right? I've understood that I can't understand. Oh, that's good. Now you're understanding. Isn't it? I mean, we say achintya, it's inconceivable. That means there's some things you'll never understand unless they're revealed to you from within the heart in the pure state of consciousness. So to say I can't understand means, well, that's good. You've understood something. Finally. You've understood the transcendental nature of Krishna that you can't understand until you become transcendental. Janma karma cha medhyam evam yaveti tattvaha. When you become transcendental, you'll understand tattva. But until then, what will you understand? Oh, Krishna's just like an ordinary man. He has so many wives, he's a debauchee, he's immoral. That's what you'll understand. Right? Why did Krishna have so many wives? It's not right. Right? People say that. What are they really saying? Why can't I have 16,000 wives? Why only he can have it? That's what they're saying. Okay, what did Prabhupada say? Okay, go, like Lord Shiva, go drink an ocean of poison. Go lift a mountain with your pinky, and then you can have 16,000 wives. If you can't do that, then you're not qualified. So, God is God, you're not God. Don't try to imitate him. Just try to serve him. And if he does things that are inconceivable, that's great. It just makes him more interesting. If he's like us, how could he be God? His life would be very boring. He just gets up and goes to work as a conditioned soul like us. So he has 16,000 wives. That's pretty interesting. He lifts the mountain with his pinky. That's pretty interesting. He does so many interesting things. Why? Because he can do them. Because he's not limited. Right? Sometimes Krishna's fighting a demon, and it's kind of anticlimactic because you know he can just blow at him and kill him. He can look at him and kill him. He can poke him in the eye and kill him. He can do it any way he wants. And we already know he's going to do it. But Lord Ram, he comes more like an ordinary human, and he has a fight, and it looks like he's going to lose. But at any moment, he could have killed Ravana also. But he's playing that part of the human being. So you look at Krishna's Leelas, and Balaram, he kills Ramachan Sutta with a blade of grass. How do you kill someone with a blade of grass? It's like a very interesting weapon. Grass, kusa grass, military budget could be reduced. We just use kusa grass. Throw kusa grass at people. Put kusa grass in a gun and shoot. Very inexpensive weapon. How do you do that? No, you have to be the Supreme Lord to do it. How do you just slap someone and their head falls off? How do you do that? You could be a world champion boxer if you figured that one out. You'd be a very dangerous person. And so people read the story and go, it's all mythology. No, as soon as you understand Krishna is inconceivable and can do what seems to be mythological, then you're starting to understand God. And as soon as you say it's mythology, why do you say it's mythology? Because you're putting in a box, and this is impossible. What's impossible for Krishna? Anything impossible? You understand, right? We're boxing Krishna into our own conception of reality. That's a big mistake. So then we have another problem. It's maybe a little more difficult problem for us. I think what I just said is pretty easy to understand, but then we have the Archa Vigraha, and that's something that takes some time to adjust to. But here, Krishna is present in wood or stone or metal. How is that possible? So what did Prabhupada say? He gave a very simple explanation about the deity. He said, Krishna is spiritual, but you can't see spirit. So if Krishna comes in a spiritual form on the altar, we'll come in the temple and we will see nothing on the altar. Right? Where's your deity? Oh, he's right there. You don't see him? No, I don't see him. No, he's right there with Radha. So what did Prabhupada say? He has to come in a form that you can see, and you can't see pure spirit. So he has to take on a form of material elements and then enter those elements. So that form is just there so we can see it, but still Krishna can manifest completely through that form. That's the Archa Vigraha. That's another inconceivable potency. God is in the deity, and you look at the deity, it just looks like wood to me. Yeah, because your consciousness is like wood, so your consciousness is dull, so then that's how you see it. And we know from experience that as we advance in Krishna consciousness, we start to perceive Krishna is there. There's reciprocation. We're not just seeing stone or marble or wood, we're actually seeing Krishna. And then we have the example, Mahaprabhu goes to Jagannath Puri, he goes in the temple, and he sees Jagannath, but what did he see? According to Chaitanya Charitamrita, he saw Shama Sundar fully. That's who he saw. He didn't see a piece of wood. And so he saw Shama Sundar and he fainted. You will not faint seeing a statue. Definitely not. You will not faint seeing a totem pole. You will faint when you see Krishna. And that's what Mahaprabhu saw when he saw Jagannath. So, okay. Here's another thing we'll read. Because he is full of inconceivable potencies, God can accept our service through any sort of medium, and he can convert his different potencies according to his own will. Non-believers argue, either that the Lord cannot incarnate himself at all, or that if he does descend, he descends in a form of material energy. So this is common misunderstanding, right? The Supreme is Brahman, Krishna is a material manifestation of Brahman. And when he dies, he goes back into Brahman. Hare Krishna. What an offense. You know what's so interesting? You need to learn this verse from Bhagavad Gita. Avyakta vyaktam apanam manite mama buddhaya. One who thinks that from the unmanifest the manifest comes is unintelligent. Because that's the impersonal philosophy. From the impersonal, the personal comes temporarily and then merges back into Brahman. So one time I was talking to a man and he was making this point. So I'm saying, let me get this clear. Are you saying that from the impersonal, the personal comes temporarily? He said, yes. I said, oh, there's a verse. Avyakta vyaktam apanam manite mam abudhaya. One who thinks the impersonal comes from the personal. That's what you're saying, right? Yeah. Krishna says, one who thinks the impersonal comes from the personal. He's abudhaya. He has little booty, less intelligent. Such a nice verse, right? And there it is, right in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, I think, verse 24 or something. Maybe. And with that verse, how could even one impersonalist exist in the world? Because Krishna clearly says, you are wrong, you are a fool. Your brain is not working if you believe this. And still, we have so many impersonalists. Isn't that interesting? It is so interesting that even Krishna makes it clear. Brahmanohi pratishtaham, the Brahman comes from me. I mean, so many verses, and it's just like, can't understand. And they don't want to understand. They've been wrongly directed. What?
It is 24.
24. It's more fun to be God than to serve God, right? And these verses rain on your parade. No, you can't be God. Look at what Krishna says. I'm God. Position already taken. I don't come from Brahman. Brahman comes from me. Brahmanohi pratishtha. Right there. It's right there in the Bhagavad Gita. The Brahman comes from me. And if you think I come from the Brahman, you're a Buddha. You don't have a brain that works well. And still, they go on and then personalize it. Isn't that amazing? You know, that's what's inconceivable. Ignorant. Albert Einstein said there's two things that are infinite: the universe and people's ignorance. So this is a good example. Infinite ignorance. Hare Krishna. Non-believers argue that either that the Lord cannot incarnate himself at all, or that if he does, he descends in a form of material energy. These arguments are nullified if we accept the existence of the Lord's inconceivable potencies. Then we will understand that even if the Lord appears before us in the form of material energy, it is quite possible for him to convert this energy into spiritual energy. Since the source of the energies is one and the same, the energies can be utilized accordingly to the will of their source. For example, the Lord can appear in the form of the Archa Vigraha, a deity supposedly made of earth, stone or wood. Deity forms, although engraved from wood, stone, or matter, are not idols, as the iconoclasts contend. You know, there's a story that Prabhupada was in Los Angeles in 1970, and he made Los Angeles the world headquarters, and so he had leaders from everywhere come there, and he established standards. This is how you worship the deity, standards of cooking, temple cleanliness, decoration, sankirtan, and you invite the leaders. And then the deity spoke to him and said, go to India. This is like summer, fall, I was second initiated in August 1970, so this was just around that time. And Prabhupada went, I think, in November to India, 1970, or October, maybe even September. I'm not sure. And so Prabhupada said he was having a conversation with the deity, and the conversation went like this. I've come here, I've established the world headquarters. And the deity said, no, you must leave. He said, how can I leave? Everything's happened here. No, you must leave and go to India. And I said, but how can I? And he said, you go to India and I will build you a bigger, nicer temple than what you have here. And that was the Juhu temple. Or all the temples, you could say. So, Prabhupada had a conversation. This is not the only time he had a conversation with Krishna. So, if you doubt that Krishna can manifest through the deity, that's a kind of atheism. And here's just one. There are other examples of Prabhupada speaking to the deity. Nobody heard, but Prabhupada's having a conversation, and he could hear. And of course, we have Sakshi Gopal, that example. One story I heard, this Pujari at Radha Damodar, he went completely crazy. And Mahanidhi Swami was living there at that time, and he asked the head of the temple, he said, what happened to this devotee? He said, oh, he got Radha Darshan. Now he's going crazy. So these things happen. He saw Radharani. Okay. Why not? Krishna's not limited. If he wants to show himself, no problem. In our present state of imperfect material existence, we cannot see the Supreme Lord due to imperfect vision. Yet those devotees who want to see him by means of material vision are favored by the Lord who appears in the so-called material form to accept his devotees' service. So we say Archa Vigraha is merciful because Krishna comes in a form which we can deal with. That's his mercy. It's like, what is a qualification to see God? You have to have prema, and Krishna is so merciful, he comes in the deity. You don't need prema. He says, here I am. No prema required. Any person off the street can come and see me. One time, we came out with a book, and it had a picture of the Paramatma on the cover. And so a man said to Prabhupada, he said, Swamiji, can you show me God? He said, yes. Prabhupada said, where's that book? He says, here, you can see God now on the cover of my new book. And so for Prabhupada, that wasn't a cover, a book cover of ink and cardboard. That was Krishna. That's how he saw that was Krishna. So yes, Krishna is so kind. You can see him right here. Nobody can see God unless they're pure, but Krishna is coming to us in these material forms. That's his mercy. We're so fortunate, isn't it? Otherwise, none of us have any qualification. What to speak of serve him? You know, I was initiated, I moved in the temple, I was initiated in 2 months. And then 6 months later, after being a devotee for 8 months, I just turned 20, I was given second initiation so I could engage in puja. So it was like 8 months ago I was, I don't want to tell you what I was doing, but breaking a few of the principles. At least 2 or 3 even sometimes. And then 8 months later I'm worshipping Krishna. That is amazing mercy, isn't it? Don't you think? Yeah, so the Archa Vigraha is really an incarnation of major mercy for the conditioned souls. So, here's a lecture Prabhupada gave, and he's commenting on this verse, mantra 5. He is tad dure tad bantike, he's far away, dure, far, antike, but near. And at the same time, antike, very near, very near. He is far away, but he's very near. Just like Krishna is standing here. One has to understand, very near. He has kindly come to you, near, so near that you can touch his lotus feet. You can offer him some foodstuff. You can decorate him. He's agreeing, yes, I will accept. How does he accept? That is called durashtam. Very, very far away at the same time, antike, immediately. Provided you know the means. If you know, then you can see. That is God's power. He can remain far away, but he can immediately be approachable by the devotee. So, someone comes to the temple, they look at the deity, and they think, idol, statue. So what does that mean? Dure. For you, he's far away. Even though you're looking at him, he's far away. But when you have some bhakti, then you see him. Krishna's there. You see Krishna's there. I'd like to tell you a story. It's so interesting. So, we had a situation in one temple in which we installed deities in a building which we were planning to buy. And the owner of the building knew, because the deities were there and it's a temple and it's been a temple for many years, that we want to buy it. So he raised the price like 10 times. And so we thought, for the price he's asking for this house, it was a big house, like 20 room, like a mansion kind of, 20 room house, and it had a little bit of property. It was a nice facility. But the price he was asking, we thought, for that price, we could buy land and raise some money and build our own temple. So that's what we did. We said, we're not going to buy this building. And then we bought some land, but there was no temple on the land. And so we had to rent a house temporarily and then raise the money and build a temple on the land. So we rented a house, but the house couldn't facilitate the deities. These are Radha and Krishna deities. It didn't have proper kitchen, proper space. So there was a farm, and on the farm they had little Gauri Thai deities. That's all they had. But they had facility to worship Radha and Krishna. So we said, can you take care of the deities, and then we'll build the temple, and then we'll bring the deities back? And they said, yes. The problem was it took 6 years to build the temple. We thought, 6 months or a year. So, after 6 years, we called them. I was the president at this time. I had to break the news to them that it's time to bring the deities back. So they had the deities for 6 years. What do you think they said when we asked them? It's time to bring them back. They said, no way. We're not letting the deities go. I said, but there are deities. And they said, yeah, but we've been taking care of them. And we're attached to them. We don't want them to go. And it was the most, maybe this will be the most amazing experience of my life emotionally. Because it was like Krishna was leaving Vrindavan. And like our temple was like Akrura stealing Krishna. They fought and fought and fought and said, no, we're not letting the deities go. You must let the deities go. And it was a tug of war. And there was so much emotion on both sides. So if Krishna were just some marble figure, how could there be this much emotion and attachment? And this was like so beautiful to see how attached the devotees had become. You can't become attached like that to a marble statue. It's not possible. And also sometimes we see that when the deities are worshipped nicely, they get fat. Have you ever seen that? They get a little fat. You come back to the temple like 6 years after they're initiated, and you go, oh, deities look a bit fat. And I was told in one temple, I don't know if you've heard this story, that the clothes they made for the deities were too small because the deities were eating so much, they got fat, and now the clothes didn't fit. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Okay. From the purport, in Mantra 5, Prabhupada says, the fact is, there is nothing but God within and without. Everything is a manifestation of his different energies, like the heat and light emanating from a fire. And in this way, there is oneness among his diverse energies. Although there is oneness, however, the Lord, in his personal form, still enjoys unlimitedly all the pleasures enjoyed minutely by the tiny part and parcel living entity. Jagannath Swami ki jai. Okay, so now we're going to read mantras 6 and 7. We did mantras 4 and 5 in 1 hour. We had mantras 6 and 7. We have another hour. You want to stand up, take a break? Or you're okay? Question? You have any questions yet or comments before we go to the... Yes. We have to do, mantra 6, 7, and 8. Yes.
When we say Krishna is everywhere. Does it mean both spiritual and material as well?
Yeah. His energy is everywhere. That's what it means. He's everywhere by his energy. So the Sarup Shakti, which is a manifestation of his energy, everything emanates from him. Balaram emanates from him. Radha emanates from him. It's all his internal potency. All right, it's time to drink water. If you drink water, your brain works better. Did you know that?
With oxygen, they say. With oxygen, they say. So with oxygen, so there's less chance of drowsing.
Move the toxins out of the body, right? Any other question? Sometimes we say, there's only Krishna, there's nothing but Krishna. There was a devotee, I forgot his name, and Lord Chaitanya said, everywhere you look, you see Krishna. And therefore, just by looking, you become more and more Krishna conscious. Funny, isn't it? And for us, everywhere we look, we see Maya. And just by looking, we become more and more in Maya. So, if you become Krishna conscious, everywhere you look, you'll see something that reminds you of Krishna. You'll see somehow or other, this will remind you of Krishna. Like when Prabhupada first came to America, he was taking a walk and there was an ad, a billboard for a steel company. And it said something like, we have unalloyed steel. And Prabhupada said, they have unalloyed steel, we have unalloyed love. Or unalloyed bhakti. So, the point is that when you're Krishna conscious, everything reminds you of Krishna. So you become Krishna conscious just by existing. Because you can't think of anything that's not somehow being connected with Krishna, either directly or philosophically. And if you're not Krishna conscious, then everywhere you look, you see Maya. So by existing, just by seeing Maya, you become more in Maya. I can enjoy this, I can enjoy that. That's Maya. So if you can't see Krishna in every atom, at least you can see him philosophically. You can look at the world through philosophy, and that way you see Krishna philosophy. You see Krishna in his philosophy manifested everywhere. People are running here and there, working hard. So what does Krishna say? Mudha. Namam duspitena mudha. The mudhas, the rascals. Beast of burden. So we see that. So we don't just see people running madly, driving madly to work every day. We see, no. We see philosophically. In that way we're seeing Krishna. Always in that way. By our vision we're becoming more Krishna conscious. Yes? Hare Krishna. Radhe Radhe. Even if you see Maya, but like Raphael, he's listening, he says, I see Maya. But even if you see Maya, if you know it's Maya, then you're seeing in a Krishna conscious way. Not that you engage in Maya and know you're in Maya. That doesn't work. But if you see this is Maya, and you analyze why it's Maya, how it's Maya, what modes of nature are controlling it, how people are being controlled, why are they being controlled, then that's seeing Krishna. Like people say, when I go to work, that environment is so contaminating and it's so tamasic, I can't be Krishna conscious. And I just say, well, what you just described was a Krishna conscious description of your work. So if you see it that way, then you can see Krishna in your work. You can see how people are being controlled by passion and ignorance, and so forth. how foolishly they think they'll be happy by doing this and that, and how they don't get along because they're all trying to be God and compete and so forth. And then you're seeing it in a Krishna conscious way. And if you see that way, at the end of the day, you'll be pretty inspired because you've been thinking philosophically the whole day. But if you just see it materially, then you kind of just get drained by it. Oh, it's so bad here, it's so toxic, it's so tamasic, people are always fighting and criticizing, and we're being pushed, and they want us to work harder, and the company doesn't care about anything but money. And so yeah, you'll come home very depressed. But if you see it in a philosophical way, then it's basically, you're just seeing Bhagavad Gita in front of your eyes, and then you'll be Krishna conscious. Right? So, mantra 6, 7, and 8. Let me read them together. A person who sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and sees all entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything nor any being. That's amazing. So if you hate anything, it means you didn't see Krishna inside that thing or person. Bhaktivedanta Goswami was giving a lecture in Mayapur, and he said, okay, we've heard this, I'm not the body, I'm spirit soul. He said, but actually, if we understood it, it would form the basis for respecting everyone. Because once you see everyone in spirit soul and Krishna in their heart, then naturally then you respect everyone. Because I think, I'm supposed to respect everybody? Yes, you are. That's part and parcel of Krishna. You're supposed to respect them in that way. So if you see them as spirit soul, you'll respect. And then you won't criticize. Of course, sometimes we might criticize to establish some philosophical point, but we're not criticizing in being generated from tamaguna criticism. But it's funny, because Prabhupada would criticize the materialist, but because he's a pure devotee, he respects everyone. So one breath criticizing, but internally still respecting. Oh, you're spirit soul. You're part and parcel of Krishna, like that. So I respect you that way. But I'm pointing out a mistake. Just like you love your child, you point out a mistake. So, yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes as preachers we condemn without respect. But we should know if Prabhupada's condemning, he's not condemning the person, he's condemning what the person does. So there's a difference, right? Isn't there? I may condemn your action, doesn't mean I'm condemning you as a person. I still respect you. Krishna's in your heart. You are a spirit soul. I respect you. But you did something wrong, and I'm pointing that out. So it's an interesting balance, isn't it? Respect all living entities, even though we may have to make some judgment calls. Okay, mantra 7. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks in quality one with the Lord becomes a true knower of things. What is there as illusion or anxiety for him? Spiritual vision. And then mantra 8. Such a person must know in fact the greatest of all, who is unembodied, omniscient. Here are the qualities of Krishna he's describing here. Isopanisad, as we said, is describing the qualities of God. So here they are. Who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminate, the self-sufficient philosopher who is awarding everyone's desire since time immemorial. So, we'll read some things that Prabhupada said in the purport. This is the purport to mantra 6. This is a description of the Mahabhagavata, the great personality who sees everything in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who imitate an Uttama Adhikari by flaunting a sense of oneness or fellowship but who behave on the bodily platform are actually false philanthropists. The conception of universal brotherhood must be learned from an Uttama Adhikari and not from a foolish person who does not properly understand the individual soul or the Supreme Lord's super soul expansion who dwells everywhere. So Prabhupada's making the point, without Krishna consciousness there can't be ultimate philanthropy or ultimate equality. Now, Arunodhaya. For the test, do they have to know Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttama? Is that part of the test? I don't know what goes. I don't have the test, so I can't say that. It's part of the test?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so we should stop for a moment to remind you that you have to know the difference between a Kanishta and Uttama, a Kanishta, a Mahabhagavat, a Madhyam and a Mahabhagavat or Uttama. And Kanishta he's an interesting fellow. He doesn't really understand the value of devotees. He understands the value of service to Krishna, but he neglects the devotee. One time, Prabhupada gave a lecture and he said, not that we follow this, he said, actually, if you're doing puja, arati, and the spiritual master walks in, you should stop and do the puja to the spiritual master. Not that we practice that, it's a principle. That it's a higher principle. To worship the devotee is a higher principle than worshiping Krishna. So Prabhupada gave that example. We never did that when Prabhupada walked in the temple. But anyway, Prabhupada stated that. So that's interesting, isn't it? So that is the handicap of the Kanishta. He doesn't understand that, the value of the Vaishnava. And he may even offend the Vaishnava. Now, some of our godbrothers have pointed out that sometimes we also find this with a spiritual master. That my spiritual master is the best and the greatest, and I may offend other devotees or minimize other devotees in the attempt to glorify him. So that's a kind of a Kanishta attitude also. My guru is everything and nobody else is anything. That would be Kanishta. So then the Madhyam, what's the Madhyam? Then he understands the value of the devotee. So he makes friends with devotees. And then he preaches to non-devotees. And then the injunction of Shastras, he avoids those who are antagonistic. That's an injunction for the Mahabhagavat. Did you know? For the Madhyam. You should not preach to antagonistic people. And then you should worship Krishna. So he has to distinguish on 4 levels. And then the Mahabhagavat, Uttama, he's interesting. His position is interesting because he doesn't make those distinctions. He doesn't avoid atheists and only make friends with devotees and avoid non-devotees per se, because he sees everyone as a devotee. So how do you avoid the devotees if you see everyone as a devotee? But he sees one person not as a devotee. Who knows who that person is that he sees that isn't a devotee? Sees everyone as a devotee but one person, himself. You may not be able to understand that. That is an extreme degree of humility. But he sees Krishna everywhere, in everyone, and in everything. Everything is Krishna, everything is Krishna's will, everyone is pure, only I am not pure. Hare Krishna. And Shastra tells us that if you think like that, you will not preach, because there won't be anyone to preach to, because everyone's a devotee. So how can I go out and make people Krishna conscious if everyone's already a devotee except me? So Prabhupada said, if someone is a Mahabhagavat, he has to descend, so to speak, to second class, a vision of the second class, so he knows who to preach to, so he can preach. So therefore it is said, the madhyam, the second class devotee, is the preacher. And if someone is a Mahabhagavat, but he comes to he doesn't descend. This is interesting. And I said he has to come to the second class platform. He doesn't actually become second class, but he comes to that vision so he can preach. But he's always Mahabhagavat. He doesn't become madhyam, so to speak. He's a Mahabhagavat, he always is, but he has to have that vision so he can speak. And then we might say, well, what about Babajis? Yeah, they didn't preach because they kept that Mahabhagavat vision. And you know that during the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, some of his disciples were able to just sit and chant all day, but he didn't want them to do that. He wanted them to preach. He wanted them to be on that second class platform. Those who imitate an Uttama Adhikari by flaunting a sense of oneness or fellowship, but who behave on a bodily platform are actually false philanthropists. This vision cannot be had by politicians who are always after some material gain. One who imitates the symptoms of an Uttama Adhikari may serve another's outward body for the purposes of fame or material reward, but he does not serve the spirit's soul. So, in Mantra 6, an interesting point is made. The word anupashyati. Anu means to follow, pashyati means to see. So what does that mean in this context? I want to read something. Excuse me. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. It has been, this is, wait a minute. It has been said that everything has Brahman as the soul. This verse, this is Mantra 6. This verse speaks of the suitable benefit for the knower of Brahman. The word tu indicates the special glory of one who knows Brahman. In this verse, the word Atma refers to the inner soul of all beings, the Lord, not the Jiva. Because the Lord does not contract himself into the Jiva, and the subject matter has been the Supreme Lord. Just describing the difference between the two. Whatever is situated on the earth is actually situated in the Paramatma. This is the significance of the word eva. The person meditates skillfully and continuously anupashyati on this. He is in all beings means simply that he pervades them, because it is impossible that he should be supported by them. I was looking for something else. Maybe it's here. I thought there was something else here. But here Prabhupada describes anupashyati. It is clearly mentioned in the 6th mantra that one should observe or systematically see. This means one must follow the previous acharyas. Yes, the perfected teachers. Anupashyati is the exact Sanskrit word used in this connection. Anu means to follow and pashyati means to observe. Thus the word anupashyati means that one should not see things as he does with the naked eye, but should follow the previous acharyas. Atmaneva anupashyati. A person sees everything. Yeah, so the verse 6 is describing that you see everything, Krishna everywhere and in everything. And then we were describing you can do that through philosophy, through the instructions of the acharyas. They teach you how to see Krishna everywhere. One time Prabhupada said, we should always be talking philosophy all the time. All the time. So that way you see Krishna everywhere. And you're talking the philosophy that you learned from your guru, from Prabhupada, from the acharyas. So that's anupashyati. I'm following the vision of the acharyas. Otherwise, I see according to my own vision, and that's when we have all kinds of problems, isn't it? We'll create so many problems when we see things according to our own vision. Isn't it? But there's another problem. Sometimes we see the words of the acharyas according to our own vision, and we contaminate their words. So we're not anupashyati. We're not perfectly following. So we have to be very, I would say, renounced and detached to understand what the Shastra and the Guru says, because sometimes what they say, we don't like it. And we try to maybe adjust it to make it a little more palatable when it wasn't meant to be palatable. It's just the truth. This is the way it is. So that requires sometimes some detachment on our part to be able to hear without interpretation. Sometimes Prabhupada would say something and we'd think, oh, he couldn't have meant what he said. No, but we try to understand. No, what did he mean? Not that I think I know what he meant, then I adjust it to make sense to my material sentiment. Okay. So another description, Prabhupada says, ekat ramanapashyati means constantly seeing through authority, through the vision of authority, anapashyati. The Mahabhagavat, the great devotee, sees oneness in the sense he sees everything as the energy of the Supreme Lord. Since there is no difference between the energy and the energetic, there is the sense of oneness. I see Krishna everywhere. That's what Prabhupada is saying. You can see Krishna everywhere. You know this story? One time they were walking with Prabhupada and said, well, how does a pure devotee see Krishna everywhere? And Prabhupada said, you see the tree? Krishna's tree. See the plant? Krishna's plant. And he said, just like a mother, she sees the shoes of her child. And then so what does she think of when she sees her child's shoe? Does she think of the child next door? Of course not. She thinks of her child. It's her child's shoe. So by seeing the shoes, she thinks of her child. By seeing everything, the devotee thinks, is Krishna's. It's his car, it's his plant, it's his mountain, it's his river. So you see Krishna everywhere. Even as a neophyte, you can see Krishna everywhere. Simple, right? So one time, devotees were bathing in the Jamuna, and they were having a lot of fun. The weather was nice, splashing around. And they were young men, had that spirit. And they were with Prabhupada, so everything was really nice. And so one of them said, Prabhupada, we're going here bathing in the Jamuna, we're having fun, the weather's nice, everything is good. He said, I'm actually forgetting Krishna. And Prabhupada said, how you can forget Krishna? Krishna says, I'm the light of the sun. I'm the taste of water. Are you not seeing the sun? Are you not tasting water? So that way, Prabhupada was teaching us how to see Krishna everywhere. And then one lecture, it was so funny. Rasoham apsukunteya. Prabhupada was lecturing on that. Krishna is the taste of water. And he was saying, actually, he's the taste of liquid. He translated it in this lecture as the taste of liquid. So he said, even if you're drinking wine, Krishna is the taste of that wine. And he said, and so Prabhupada, this is exactly what he said. He said, you should tell the drunkards in your country, and you have no shortage of drunkards, that when they drink wine, that taste is Krishna. And if they think that taste is Krishna, one day they will come out as saintly persons. That's exactly what he said. Isn't that funny? So what's Prabhupada's point? It's somehow or other, if you think of Krishna, you'll get purified. Even if you're drinking wine, at least you're thinking of Krishna. And that wine becomes your udipan, a stimulus for thinking of Krishna. And that thinking of Krishna will override the contamination of your desire to drink wine, and then you become purified. So that, you see, oh, what do we say? Om pavitra pavitra va yasmare sarvavashtam katobi va yasmare pundarikaksham sarvabhayam kala shuchihi. What do we say? Sarvavashtam katobi va. You could have done anything and gone anywhere, and you could be pavitra or apavitra. You could be pure and not pure. It doesn't matter if you yatsmare pundarikaksham, if you remember the lotus-eyed one. Sarva vayam antara suchi. You'll be purified inside and out. That's the point. So the point of this verse is, if somehow or other we can figure out how to see Krishna everywhere and everything, we'll become pure devotees. If it works for the drunkard drinking wine, certainly it'll work for us. Right? So that's the point of this verse. And that's the point of that verse. When we get initiated, we recite that verse. Okay? Here you've come, you're taking initiation. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past, where you've been, but now we're going to initiate you into the chanting of the holy name so you can remember Krishna. And if you remember Krishna, you'll be purified. You can be Jagai and Madhai, it doesn't matter. You will be purified. You can be Mrigari the hunter, and you'll be purified. It doesn't matter. So somehow or other, think of Krishna. Somehow or other, allow things around you to remind you of Krishna. Somehow or other, when you see people, hear a spirit soul. Krishna's in their heart. And you can be Krishna conscious 24 hours a day. That's the goal. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Do you know the goal of Krishna consciousness is to think of Krishna 24/7? Do you know that? Anyone? That is the goal. And you think, how can I think of Krishna 24/7? I'm conditioned soul. Well, here we're learning how to do it. Right? One who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me. I've never lost him, he's never lost him. So now we'll read some things Prabhupada said about mantra 8. And I'll read mantra 8. Such a person must know, in fact, the greatest of all, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated. The self-sufficient philosopher who is awarding everyone's desire since time immemorial. The anatomy of a material body must have a mechanical construction with veins and so forth. But the transcendental body of the Supreme Lord has nothing like veins. It is clearly stated here that he is unembodied, which means there is no difference between his body and his soul. You know, we say, I'm not this body, but when you get to the spiritual world, you don't say, I'm not this body. When you get to the spiritual world, you say, I am this body. Right? So why does it say Krishna's without veins? Because he is without veins, because he has a spiritual body, that's why. So by saying without veins is another way of saying it's not a material body. It's without so many things. Prabhupada goes on to say, this means he has no form like ours, and that he is devoid of a form we can conceive of. In the Brahma Samhita, it is further stated that each and every part of his body can do the work of the other senses. One time, the devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, in the spiritual world, nothing dies. So, if, for example, the devotees eat a carrot, how can they eat a carrot? What happens to the carrot? Prabhupada said, when you go, you will find out. Which is another way of saying, I can't explain it to you. You'll never understand. So, it's a reality we all live with, that there are certain things we won't understand until we go there. And so this is an interesting one. Okay, Krishna could do anything with any part of his body. I was like, well, how do you eat with your feet? I mean, I could understand eating with my eyes. It's like you can enjoy through your eyes, or you could eat through your nose. How could you eat with your foot? Right? Or how could you sing with your ear? Any part of the body can do anything. And so, when we read these things, we're not supposed to figure it out mechanically how that works. We'll stay up at night thinking, oh, I just can't figure this out. How does this work? We're just to understand the concept that it's not a limited physical body where the functions of the senses have limitation to one activity. How that happens, you may never know, but it's a principle, right? Otherwise, you want to figure out how you can eat with your foot? I don't know if you can figure it out. How does Krishna do it? So this is what Prabhupada says. In his childhood, he killed many powerful demons such as Agasura, Bakasura, Sakat Asura, and Corona Asura. No, it doesn't say that. And there is no question of his having acquired such power through any extraneous endeavor. So the Prabhupada says something funny here. I think it's funny. He lifted Govardhan Hill without ever practicing weight training. These are Prabhupada's exact words. He lifted Govardhan Hill without having practiced any weight training. As if weight training would help you lift Govardhan Hill. I don't think so. He danced with the gopis without social restriction and without reproach. This is interesting. How could he dance with other men's wives? That's immoral. Prabhupada said, all women are Krishna's wives. You're dancing with one of Krishna's gopis. You've stolen one of his wives. That's immoral. Just flip it around. And then another answer to that question. How could he dance with other men's wives? He's dancing with himself. They're all expansions of himself. He's only dancing with himself. He's not dancing with anybody other than himself. And the other answer is, those wives were not actually married. It was an illusion. They were married for Leela. They never had any contact with their husbands. There were other gopis that were manifested, and they had contact with those men. Did you know that? They never had contact. But anyway, Krishna wants to dance with other men's wives. What's the problem? You have a problem with that? Well, if you have a problem, when you go back to Godhead, you can talk to him about it. But the problem is, if you have a problem, you'll never go back to Godhead to talk to him about the problem. He danced with the gopis without social restriction and without reproach. Although the gopis approached him with a paramour's feeling of love, the relationship between the gopis and Lord Krishna was worshipped even by Lord Chaitanya, who was a strict sannyasi and rigid follower of disciplinary regulation. So this is such a good argument that Prabhupada's giving. Okay, you think this is immoral, and here you have Lord Chaitanya, who's the strictest of the strictest sannyasis, and he's worshipping the gopis. Doesn't make any sense that he would worship immoral activities. and completely strict, renounced sannyasi. And those who describe, like Sukadeva Goswami and Vyasadeva also, strict devotees, strict followers of the Vedas. What business do they have to do describing ordinary men and women? And what is the proof that Krishna is transcendental and pure is because when you hear about Krishna dancing with the gopis, you lose the desire to dance with your gopis and gain the desire to become one of those gopis so you can dance with him. Right? Just like the Vedas personified prayed, we want to be gopis. Can we be gopis in your Leela? The sages of Danyakaranya, can we be gopis? They became attracted to that. And that is the purest, highest love. So that Leela purifies us of lust. So how could that Leela be part of the material modes of nature if it purifies you of the modes of nature? How can a medicine, if it has a disease, cure a disease? It has to be completely pure. To confirm that the Lord is always pure and uncontaminated, Sri Isopanisad describes him as Shuddham, antiseptic, and apapa vidham, prophylactic. He is antiseptic in the sense that even an impure thing can become purified just by touching him. The word prophylactic refers to the power of his association. As mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 9:31, a devotee may appear to be sudarachara, not well behaved in the beginning, but he should be accepted as pure because he is on the right path. This is due to the prophylactic nature of the Lord's association. So, Prabhupada's quoting Apichet Sudarachara, the last verse of the 9th chapter of the Gita, which says even you do something abominable, you will become a sadhu. Why will you become a sadhu? The same point we're making. If you're connected to Krishna, somehow you'll be purified. Even you're a drunkard, even you're jaga and mada, you'll become purified. It doesn't matter. You know, sometimes devotees say, yeah, but I'm so fallen that if I chant Hare Krishna, I'll contaminate the holy name. So I shouldn't chant Hare Krishna. I'll even contaminate the holy name. I'm so fallen. No. What is the song, Narottam Das Thakur? The holy name purified even Jagai Mada. That's the whole point. It's not about you being fallen. It's about the holy name being pure. And if you take it purely, you'll be purified. It doesn't matter what you've done, who you are, how you think, how you feel. If you take something as pure as Krishna and his holy name and you take it purely, you'll be purified. It's like this medicine, it works. If you take it according to the prescription, it's going to work. It doesn't matter how sick you are, it works because Krishna is pure. Simple idea, right? So don't ever think you can't be purified. The only reason we couldn't be purified is that we're not taking the medicine properly. But if we take it properly, we'll be purified. No, Prabhu, I'm so fallen. Are you as fallen as Jagai and Madhai? I doubt it. Have you committed every sin Jagai and Madhai committed? I doubt it. They specialized, their life was dedicated to committing sin. The more sins, the better. I doubt you committed as many sins. You as bad as Mrigari, killing animals, and you enjoy it? Of course not. He is often compared to the sun. The sun extracts moisture from many untouchable places on the earth, yet it remains pure. In fact, it purifies obnoxious things by virtue of its sterilizing powers. If the sun, which is a material object, is so powerful, then we can hardly begin to imagine the purifying strength of the all-powerful Lord. If a material thing can purify, what to speak of the holy name and Krishna's holy remembrance and the deity and the Bhagavata and the prasada and the sangha. So, one more thing. Apapa vidham. Prabhupada says about apapa vidham. Who knows what apapa vidham means? Without sin. And vidham, what does vidham mean?
Apapa is prophylactic.
Yeah.
Prophylactic. And vidham means, yeah, it's together.
What is apapa vidham? Yeah. What are the words Prabhupada uses? Prophylactic, and what's the other word?
No,
Like
it's together.
sterilizing? Yeah. Okay. So here's another. This is the most important part of this verse. No sin can pollute Krishna. There cannot be any sinful action. Your laws cannot restrict Krishna. For you, there may be so many restrictive laws. Sometimes less intelligent class of men. They criticize Krishna. How he enjoyed the company of so many young girls. They were wives of other persons. So how it is so? So the answer was given that Krishna cannot be contaminated. Rather, anything comes to Krishna, even with contaminated mind. It becomes purified. So that's the idea of this mantra. Come in touch with Krishna, you become purified. So let me just look. Read a little something from the commentaries, just to get maybe a slightly different vision. So here's a description. This is from the Varaha Purana. It's just describing the nature of Krishna. He is Sukram, bright, because he is devoid of lamentation. He is Avranam, without blemish, because he is eternally perfect. He is called Shuddham, because he purifies everything. He is called Akayam, without body, because he is devoid of a subtle body. He is called Ashnaviram, without veins, because he is devoid of a gross body. He is called Kavi, wise, because he knows everything. He is called Manashi, wise, because he controls the minds of all beings, beginning with Brahma, and even controls the mind of Lakshmi. He is called Paribhu because he is the best of all. He is known as Swayambhu, self-born, because he never takes shelter of anyone else. The Supreme Lord has created the real world in a regulated way, in the matter of a continuously flowing current, which is eternal but changing and beginningless, which is eternal but changing in beginningless and endless time. So, any questions, comments? We have 10 minutes. Or are there any points for the test that I didn't cover? Do you know? Does anybody know? Is there anything?
No, the questions are simple. So one word or one line. Except
Simple questions.
Except the essay.
Yeah. Let me just look. There may be something on the slideshow.
Filled with quotes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think yes. Maharaj.
He's present, but at the same time he's not personally present everywhere. So then, when a devotee sees in lower levels and in neophyte levels, he sees everything. He should see even then as Krishna personally present everywhere, like the sun, the water, the weight of water, and when he sees everything, he should see only Krishna's expansion there, or he should personally see Krishna there in the neophyte level also.
In the neophyte level, as she's asking how we can see Krishna everywhere. Well, you have that in the Gita, 7th chapter, 10th chapter, 11th chapter, how to see Krishna in nature. So, and you have that second canto, universal form. And the Prabhupada says that universal form is, it enables neophytes to imagine, the trees are Krishna's veins, oceans his abdomen, like that. So it reminds you of Krishna. Of course, the ocean isn't his abdomen. The sun and the moon are not really his eyes. But if you see the sun and the moon, you think, oh, it's Krishna's eyes. So it's just a way to get you to think of Krishna. But I think most relevant for us was the point I was making, that if you see Anupashyati through the eyes of the acharyas and you develop a more of a philosophical outlook on life, then our philosophy can relate everything to Krishna in some way. So you can see everything some way related. And that's why I was given the example of when Prabhupada saw the sign that said unalloyed steel, he immediately thought unalloyed, which means pure, anyabhilashitam sunyam. So Prabhupada was thinking, we have unalloyed love. So in that way, anything can remind you of Krishna. Even the coronavirus can remind you of Krishna. So, people, now we can see people are worried. I might get the virus, I might die. We think of the Yudhisthira saying, everyone thinks they're going to live forever, no one's going to die. And how this virus is good because it's reminding people that they're going to die. And so we always see everything in a Krishna conscious way. So that, I think, is easier than maybe artificially trying to see. But Shastra says something very interesting about seeing Krishna and seeing the soul. It said, you should not neglect anyone. You should not treat someone like they don't exist. You ever treat someone like they don't exist? You're just like, he's the bus. Oh, you're just the bus driver. You don't exist for me. I don't care about you. Or it's just the lady, cleaning the clothes on the street. She doesn't exist. He said, no, we should respect everyone. So I think that's something we could put more attention on. Just not neglecting any living entity. Realizing, well, here's the spirit soul. Krishna's in their heart. And Sanatana Goswami says we should be compassionate to everyone. And sometimes we think, well, I can only be compassionate spiritually. But, if somebody falls over on the ground and they need help, you don't think, well, what does this have to do with spreading Krishna consciousness? Just let them sit on the ground. Someone else can pick them up. I'm a devotee. No, it's not how a devotee thinks. So compassion. Oh, here's a living entity. They need help. We can't neglect anyone. So it's a practice. So we practice seeing that way, acting that way. Right?
When they see the sun, what they feel, Acharya?
I am a Prabhasmi Shashi Surya. I'm the light of the sun and the moon. That's Krishna's energy. We see there's nothing but Krishna. And when you're in Maya, you see there's everything but Krishna. Material life means get Krishna out of the picture. So you don't want to see Krishna. Why do you want to see Krishna? He ruins all your fun. You see Krishna, then you have to follow him. You just want to enjoy. Right? Break all principles and do whatever you want. So who wants to think of Krishna? But then you feel guilty. Oh, I know Krishna doesn't want me to do this. Better I don't think of him. So the way Maya works is Maya allows you to enjoy the material world by forgetting what Krishna wants you to do. Because if you remember what he wants you to do, you can't enjoy sinful activity because he doesn't want you to do it. So the best way to enjoy sinful activity is just forget him and deny, oh, it's just the Vedas, it's just mythology. And that way, just do whatever you want. And don't feel guilty about it. But a devotee is just the opposite. They want to see Krishna everywhere because they want to follow Krishna. They want to remember his instructions. They always want to talk about him and remember those instructions. So it all starts with that desire to be Krishna conscious. And if we want to enjoy the material world, then it's harder to see Krishna. He's not so relevant.
So it's okay to see Krishna in the lower levels. So it's okay to see Krishna in the lower levels also everywhere.
It's okay to see Krishna.
In the lower levels of devotion also.
Yeah, you must. When I was a young devotee, Prabhupada wrote me a letter and he said, the goal of Krishna consciousness is to always remember Krishna. So from this class we're learning that somehow or other, gain, attain, pakadena, somehow or other remember Krishna. However it is, you can do it. Remember him. If it's through philosophy or through appreciating nature, remembering a shloka, thinking of the deity, chanting the holy name, somehow. Because he's antiseptic and prophylactic and will become purified. Also, like if you're a devotee and you happen to see someone do something amazing, whether it's a musical performance or a piece of art or an athletic performance or something where a person has extraordinary talent. If you're a devotee, you'll think, what does Krishna say? I am the ability in man. You'll think of, that's Krishna. Right? Right? Look at, you're all fascinated by cricket. You're all fascinated by Bollywood. So you may be familiar with some extremely successful and talented cricket star or some amazing actor or actress. And when you see them, if you're a devotee, you'll think, this is Krishna's Shakti. What this person is doing is amazing. But it's Krishna that's doing it. So you see Krishna even in them. So you can find Krishna anywhere, because he is everywhere. I am the ability in man. Okay, anything great done by anyone, that was Krishna. Or, maybe you like reading Rabindranath Tagore's poetry, but where did the intelligence come to write it? It came from Krishna. Not that I recommend reading his poetry necessarily, but if you happen to read it, you're on the street, or you see something he said, it's posted somewhere, or somehow you see it, and you think, oh, this is brilliant, it's Krishna. That's how we see it. There is nothing but Krishna. That's the idea. Is that okay? Yes.
How should he decide who is above him and who is below him? What should be the mood?
The Madhyamadhikari, he makes friends with equals, he shows mercy to the juniors, and he respects the seniors. So she's asking, well, how do you know where you stand? Because the Mahabhagavat, everybody's senior, everybody's worshipable. And
what should be the mood of a devotee in temple?
yeah, that's the mood. Respect the seniors, make friends with your equals, and show mercy to the junior. So I think the complication of the question is, well, how do I know who my senior is? I think you're my senior, and you think I'm your senior. But you can also look at seniors in terms of when they were initiated. Oh, he's a senior devotee because he was initiated before me. So if someone was initiated one day before you, they're a senior. Of course, you may be friends because it's only one day and you're the same age and so forth. I think you know who your friends are. But Sometimes it's just obvious that some devotees are more Krishna conscious, and then naturally, in a devotee's humble heart, he respects them as more advanced because he can see this devotee's realizations are greater, his detachment is greater, his service is greater. He's obviously more advanced, so I should honor them. And then obviously someone is younger. They need help. So sometimes it's just obvious. If we're proud, then we're not going to think anybody's greater. Or very few people, only my guru is greater. That's a mistake. So we have to be a little humble. So there's, the etiquette of the day you were initiated, that's a distinguishing factor of seniority, but the most distinguishing or most important is one's advancement. And so, you can tell someone's more Krishna conscious.
So it's not okay to see everybody higher than us in the temple?
That's artificial. You try to see everyone higher. That's because you can't try to imitate a level of Krishna consciousness you're not on. No, seeing through the vision of their instruction. So the acharyas don't instruct the second-class devotee to artificially see everyone better. We understand that the highest level of humility would be that I see everyone better. But that's a theory for us right now. Okay. We're just trying to see that our senior godbrothers are better. That's hard enough because we think we're better than everybody. And we want to criticize everybody. That's our disease. So if I can at least see respectfully some devotees, I'm doing good. Right? Just respect a few devotees to start with, and work your way up from there.
But is that the goal?
It's not necessarily looked at as the goal. You will arrive in that consciousness by being Krishna conscious automatically. As you become more Krishna conscious, automatically you become more humble. So your goal is to be Krishna conscious. Automatically you will respect. You will appreciate. It just comes. It comes as a.
It will come to everyone.
It will come. Now you practice. So now you practice respecting. We respect all devotees. So now I may not see you as more advanced than me, but it doesn't mean I don't respect you. So I may say, okay, I'm an older devotee, and Shastra says I should try to help you. But at the same time, I respect that you're a devotee. And I respect that you have many qualities that I lack. So even though I'm designated as senior, the natural humility of a devotee is that you see the good in others, and you see that every devotee has some quality that I lack. So that definitely should be there. We should never become so proud that we think we're better than everybody. Duryodhana had that problem. We don't want to imitate him. We don't want to follow his disciplic line. But even in the youngest devotee, you can see some good quality that's lacking in yourself, for sure. And that is just real. That's just being real and honest, because it's true, right? So that we can do.
By doing this, by seeing what in others, the good qualities in others, by respecting everyone this way, there will come a time when we will be able to see naturally we will be able to see others as higher.
Yeah, it's called prema. That time is called prema. And when you have prema, then you will start feeling like you're a worm in stool. So you can look forward to that. But right now, if you try to feel like a worm in stool, you will go completely crazy. We'll see you tomorrow, and you'll be walking around with your head down and a very depressed look on your face and not smiling. And we'll say, "What's wrong? Sitalangi, what's wrong?" And you'll say, "I'm trying to feel lower than a worm in stool." No. In our position, we can't do that. That is a natural byproduct of prema, that you will feel that way. In our position, we can, as I said, try to see the good in others and try to serve others. That's our humility. And stop criticizing. That probably the best thing we can do in the humility department is to stop criticizing and start appreciating, because that's where we need the most help. So that's where I would say, if you want to look at humility, look at how you're appreciating others. and be very concerned about criticizing. Is that Bhaktisiddhanta said, the reason I criticize is because I lack humility. So we should, be aware. Criticism is a manifestation of lack of humility. Appreciation is a manifestation of humility. So that kind of humility we can have. That's practical for us. We try to feel some other kind of humility that's only reserved for Mahabhagavad. It won't help us. We'll try to see everyone is better than us, and then the next day we'll be criticizing everyone because we're not in Mahabhagavad. So if we can learn to be a little appreciative of everyone and less critical, that for us is really where we want to be, and we can call that humility in the second class level. Okay? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi Hari Hari. I have a question.